Well, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see all colleagues joining in. My name is Namita Datta, and I am program manager of a global program called Solutions for Youth Employment that's hosted here at the World Bank. And I know a lot of colleagues from outside the bank will also be joining. So in S4Y, one of the things we do is every month, at least a couple times, we try and focus on a particular topic and try and take stock of new developments, and particularly learn from practitioners, all towards solving the overall problem on youth employment. So I'm really excited that today the topic is about the gig economy. So the gig economy, and just for in terms of definition, the gig economy is really the economy where you work. I mean, everybody, when you hear the word gig, you think about Uber drivers, right? But there is a whole variety of gig jobs that people are doing. But like, for example, on online gig jobs, where clients match with workers and do short, very specific project-based tasks. So they're not employees of either the client or the platform, but they are able to do these tasks and get paid for them. And this whole process is facilitated by platforms, a digital platform. So there's a digital intermediary. In general, we could think about these gig jobs as two types. One is the gig jobs where it's location based. So that's like an Uber driver, where the job that you get, the task, is through an online platform, but the delivery of that task is done in a particular location. But there is another category, which is location agnostic, which is where you might write a software program, you might do some data entry. So you don't really need to be in a particular location. You could do it. You simply need to have access to broadband, a laptop perhaps, or sometimes even a mobile phone. Now, why this development is exciting from a gender perspective is because the question we're asking is, does it really help address some of the biggest constraints that women face in joining the labor market? And that's flexibility and mobility constraints. So just the luxury of having the flexibility. I shouldn't use the word luxury, but the ability to have the flexibility in your work schedule and not having to travel to a place of work. One might think opens up a whole new world of work for women. So the question we want to talk about in this webinar is that really happening? Is the gig economy really increasing new types of opportunities for women? And I'm so excited that we have three wonderful panelists today. Actually, I should say four. We have four wonderful panelists today. And to kick us off, I'll invite my colleague Nadina. Nadina Jakob is working in a team that is between the jobs group and digital development, and we are actually in the process of finalizing quite a big report on online gig jobs, and Nadina will share a few early findings. And by the way, we haven't yet released the report, so she will just share a few sort of preliminary early findings from that report. And then I'm really delighted that Marie Cruz is able to join us. Marie Cruz Tabia is the executive director at SheWorks. And we've been chatting with her for our report as well, but she will tell us what SheWorks is. So I'll let her describe that. And then I'm also happy that Elvira Van Deel is also able to join us. Elvira works in IFC as a specialist in SME and value chain development. So she will bring in the whole skills perspective for gender inclusion. And then Rani Deshpande is a senior financial specialist at CGAP. She will bring in the perspective of financial inclusion and what that means for women's ability to join platform work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nadina to just kick us off, share some preliminary findings. And while Nadina does that, I'll try and figure out what's wrong with my camera. Nadina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Namita, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're joining.
Nadina, you're muted.
Oh.
I can hear you.
There you go.
Okay, so you can hear me, right? Was everything okay? All right, perfect. Once again, just in case somebody might have missed this, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're joining. It is a pleasure to kickstart our discussion today with a sneak preview into this upcoming
Nadina,
study that Namita.
I can't hear you. Can others hear you? Nadina? Really?
I can all hear her.
Okay, so there's
I can hear her.
something going on.
Okay, in case anybody else has issues apart from Namita, please let me know. Otherwise, I assume that it's just a problem on Namita's end. Okay, perfect. Once again, it is a pleasure to kickstart our conversation today with a sneak preview into our upcoming study on online gig economy that we have been working on at the World Bank. Our study puts the spotlight on how the online gig economy can bring labor market opportunities and facilitate what we call working without borders. But beyond the opportunities, we also look at challenges still out there. And before delving into more details, allow me to clarify one aspect. Namita already laid out the two main groups of gig jobs, namely the location-based and those that are done fully online. Our study focuses on online gig jobs that are not dependent on location and can be done remotely. Fully online gig jobs typically include software development, writing and translation, digital marketing, and also micro tasks that can be done in just a couple of minutes. So please just keep in mind this distinction as we go along the presentation. Now, onto the study itself. One of the key research questions we are asking in the study is how inclusive is the online gig economy? And we analyze this question from 6 angles or 6 dimensions of inclusion. We look at gender, education, location, language, and earnings. But for now, for this presentation, I will just keep the spotlight on gender. What methods do we use in researching this question? Well, we have gathered extensive data through multiple methods. We conducted a global online survey in 17 countries, covering the 6 World Bank regions. We developed country deep dives in 4 countries. We ran surveys on 10 online gig work platforms. And we ran interviews and focus group discussions with platform representatives and online gig workers. Now, most of the insights that you will see in this presentation are based on the global survey, but I have included here and there a couple of examples from platforms. So with this background in mind and without any further ado, let us dive into some of our key results. One of the main things that we see is that while men are still the majority of online gig workers, we have roughly 60%, 40% split between men and women in the online gig economy. We do find, though, that women are increasingly taking advantage of the opportunities of online work. We find in particular that women engage on average to a greater extent in the online gig economy compared to how they participate in similar sectors, including the services sector and the informal sector. There are, of course, variations by region. In MENA and East Asia Pacific, for instance, women actually account for the majority of online gig workers, a much greater share compared to women in the services sector. And this you can see on the graph on the left. Similarly, in MENA, Africa, and Latin America and the Caribbean, the share of women in online gig work is similar or greater than the share of women in the informal sector. And this you can see in the graph on the right. We have also looked through the work that we have done at the platform level, and we found that there are also gig platforms in different countries that are doing better at including women, with examples, for instance, in Latin America and Malaysia. Here are just a couple of examples. I'm sure that Maricruz will also have more to share from her experience with a gig work platform. Now, beyond these key statistics, we also wanted to see what are the key drivers that compel women to join the online gig economy. We asked online gig workers, both men and women, about the main reason for doing online work. And what we see is that compared to men, women are more likely to do online gig work to earn additional income. And among the different examples that we have seen, flexibility is also a key factor in getting women to join the online gig economy. This is particularly clear in some cases, such as among women gig workers using the online freelancing platform Workana in Latin America. This is based on one of the surveys that we ran. Why am I putting the emphasis on flexibility? Well, particularly because this ability for women to be able to arrange their schedules as they wish can be particularly helpful in helping in balancing the different responsibilities that women may have, for instance, as caregivers, with the need to earn a living. Beyond this aspect of key drivers that bring women into the online gig economy, we also wanted to understand the work patterns in terms of time spent and money earned from online gig work. What we see from our global survey is that women do online gig work as a secondary occupation, spending part of their time on gig work and earning supplementary income. This is to say that they don't do online work as their main activity, but also they don't do this sporadically, only every now and then. Gig work actually is more of a part-time occupation that does contribute to their income and also takes up a part of their time. Interestingly, also what we see compared to men is that women are more likely to do online gig work as a secondary occupation. And you can see this in the graph on this slide. I have just selected just a couple of key insights, like I said, a sneak preview into our study. And while we do see promising developments, there is still some untapped potential in the online gig economy for women. And the question now is, what can be done about this? Especially as the online gig economy keeps growing and opportunities keep arising. I would narrow it down for now to 2 points, and I'm sure that my colleagues, fellow speakers, will have additional points to raise. First, what I would put the emphasis on is learning from local and regional best practices and including women in order to fully tap the potential of the online gig economy. Second, targeted support for women is necessary. Such targeted support can mean skills training and providing the means for women to develop as online freelancers and perhaps ultimately also as entrepreneurs. So I leave these points in the hands of the next speakers who will be sharing more insights into what can be done to support women in their gig work journeys. And I hope some of the stats that I have shared with you give you a bit of a context of where we are now with the online gig economy. Thank you very much. Namita, over to you.
Can you hear me, Nadina?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just one of those days. I'm just simply not able to either connect my camera or even hear properly. But I know what you said, Nadina, because I saw your slides. No, thank you so much. And I think we'll probably just move to the next panelist and then come and collect questions a little bit in the end. And actually, I just also want to encourage people to put comments and questions in the chat, and I'm able to moderate that. So, Maricruz, over to you. Tell us a little bit about SheWorks. What does
Okay,
SheWorks
for
do?
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the invitation and for inviting SheWorks to participate of this research project. It has been very interesting, and we welcome the light that it's being shed on this topic. And you know, we started SheWorks in 2016. We had been working already in outsourcing and with freelance platforms with other companies that we had in the past, and we actually found that we could leverage technology to bring more female inclusion in the workforce. Of course, we had been looking at the difficulties that companies had finding professionals that had the skills that they needed at an arm's length, because you know, finding people locally, it's really hard for them. We understood that companies had difficulties going remote. When we started in 2016, online work was not understood. It was not cool. Nobody wanted to do it because there was no trust, there was no visibility, there were no tools also to enable remote work. But so that's how we started SheWorks, right? As an online platform that would allow companies to connect with remote workers, especially women. And we focused on women because when we started working on outsourcing, we found that most of the people that were registering in our platform back then were women. We found that they were highly educated. Everyone in our platform either has one bachelor and a master, two bachelors, maybe a master, a bachelor and two master's degree. So women in all, they were highly, highly educated. And looking at their work history, they all were going on an upward direction until at some point in their life, when they were in their 30s or their 40s, it stops going upward. And so we were having discussions with them and trying to understand, why. And it all had to do with something that was already mentioned, the pressure that is put on women to look after somebody in their family, either children, their parents, a relative that has gone ill. So they were always looking for flexibility in their work. And, nowadays, when you're working at a regular job, long hours, long commutes, you have to be there to be considered that you're working. But we understood that that's not actually what work means. Work is something you do, not a place where you got to, especially when you're looking at the type of jobs that we were working with, right? With translation, software development, graphic design. All of those things could be done from anywhere in the world. And that's why we took it up on ourselves for this to become our mission, right? To help women be part of the job market, and to use technology to leverage that opportunity. And that's how we started SheWorks. And as I was saying, our purpose is to leverage technology to enable more women to be part of the economy and work and be able to earn an income. And we thought that what we could do is connect the dots. So we would use an online platform, so use technology to connect education with talent with employers. And our focus also, our work also focuses on the SheWorks Academy, because as you had already mentioned, making sure the women have the skills necessary to work remotely, it's also really important. Whenever we had the discussions with our clients to tell them, no, but you can use remote tech, our platform, right, to be able to hire someone that is working from home. You could bring diversity to your teams by hiring women especially. And some of them, when presented with candidates, would say, well, but this person has been out of work for a year, maybe a little bit longer. So probably they don't know about the trends. They're not aware of the latest technology. So they might not be all that fit for a job that may have, right? And that's why we started SheWorks Academy, right? Because we thought, no, people don't rust for being out of work for some time. They just need a little bit of a push to be able to get back on their feet and get on and start working again. And that's how we started SheWorks Academy, also as part of our company, where we provide remote training to women. And our programs focus on three main things. One of them is on remote readiness, to give women the tools and the knowledge they need to be able to work effectively online, right? So how do you manage your time? What tools do you have to be able to work effectively online? And then we also focus on e-commerce and digital marketing, because as you know, after the pandemic, a lot of companies transition into the online world. And so that was one of the positions that was more on demand. And so we wanted women to have the skills that they needed to be able to take on jobs that were required at that particular time, right? And so this one was one of the most requested ones. And so we started with the e-commerce and digital marketing program that had to do with digital content, with e-commerce, with digital marketing. And we were very, very lucky to be able to partner with other large companies like Microsoft, Facebook, and Google to be able to provide training together with them in the technologies that they provide. And then, of course, our Facebook training was one of the most successful ones. And we were looking at very particular skills, very, very technical and complex skills that had to do with these courses that I mentioned there, like associate marketing certification, community management certification, and technical services certification, which requires a lot of studying, and it combines marketing with coding and other issues as well. So it was a very complex training, but a very successful one because it's a type of skills that people require now. So very, very, very trendy. And our learning, the type of courses that we provide are given in a blended type of methodology where we combine sessions that are done live with materials and learning that can be do at their own pace and on their own. And we found that it was really important to have an instructor, a person that is going to guide the learning experience. And that was very, very successful. And we were working also in small sprints because we're again working with women that don't spend all of their time on this matter. So it's something that they do on the side. So that's why it had to be short, very inspiring, very agile methodology. And this for us is what worked the best. And we have been conducting this type of training together with government. We have done this with the government of Colombia, government of Guatemala, the government of Argentina, the government of the United States. And we've had very, very good results with more than 80% completion rate and with a net promoter score of above 90%, which is really, really good. And when you speak with the professionals that have been taking our courses, we always have very positive reviews, and we find that it has really helped them. When women join our online programs for training, for taking one of these courses, we end up seeing that some of them come to us with not feeling really great about themselves, with a lot of doubts, a lot of fear. And we feel that we're able to help them feel more empowered and able to find a new path and build a new path for them. And because we always think that independence starts with the wallet, we're connecting the education part with the job market. So SheWorks also has a job market and different services that we provide to companies for them to be able to find a professional to add to their team. It could be short freelance jobs like the ones we had mentioned before, like graphic design or translation or content writing. But we have found that clients are now more inclined to add people on a long-term basis. So we have also added virtual support roles like PAs, executive assistants, customer support representatives, sales representatives. So we have opened and broadened a lot the scope of the professionals, the type of industries that we're working with. And as I was saying, work is something you do, not a place you go to. At least our platform allows you to work from anywhere in the world. We have people that have joined our platform from all different regions. Yes, we make our efforts more into recruiting professionals in Latin America. Most of our clients are in the United States, so it makes sense for them to have them in the same time zone, but also because a lot of our team members are in Latin America. We have a remote team. We have professionals in Mexico, in Paraguay, in Argentina, Colombia. And so it's easier for us also to recruit women in Latin America. And the professionals that we work with come from all those different industries that I'm showing there. Now, a lot of them are experts in content writing, graphic design, tech experts, digital marketing, virtual support, and of course, human resources and talent acquisition. So a lot of variety. When we first started, when people were looking at freelancers and people that were working remote, they were thinking mainly in creative industries, but nowadays, anyone, all the professions can be digitized. So all even accountants, lawyers, everyone is started to look at this as a viable way for them to work. And as you were saying, when women start or join our platform, at the beginning, it's just something that they do on the side. They want to test, they want to see how it works, they want to see if it works for them. But as time goes by, it ends up becoming their main source of income. So at least for the women that we see in our platform, they're really amazing. They're very talented, and the rehiring rate in our platform is higher than 80%. So that means that clients come back to them for more work. They offer them longer projects. And so, as I was saying, maybe it started as something you do on the side, but as time goes by, they see that it's something that it's viable and it can become their main source of income. The benefits for women is that, of course, they can work from anywhere in the world. As I was saying, we have people that have maybe moved countries. We have people that have gone back to where they're based, where they were born, or even myself. I work from a very small town in Argentina. It's called Frank. We have 5,000 inhabitants here, so it's very, very small. It's quite difficult to get here because, you know, the roads don't connect all the well. And if it wasn't because I work online, I wouldn't be able to work with SheWorks or all of the clients that we work with, like MasterCard, PepsiCo, and Millicom, and so on. But it's possible because of technology, because now we're able to have all our information online. We're able to communicate as we're doing now with all the different tools that we have now. So definitely technology has opened up a lot of possibilities for women now, regardless of where they're based. And we also do vetted jobs. So we definitely take a look at the companies that are joining our platform and that are, you know, going to hire them. We also have satisfaction guarantee policies in place also to safeguard our professionals, right? Because regardless, you know, maybe there's a problem with payment or something like that, we respect our schedule, and, you know, anybody that works with us will get paid for the work they have done. And of course, we're always there to support them in any way that it's needed. Payments are done in US dollars. And, you know, for professionals that are based in Latin America, it makes a huge difference, because that means that you're not going to be affected by the high inflation rate that some of our countries have, that you're not going to be afflicted by the internal turmoil that could be happening in the country. So it gives you security, and it means that your salary is going to go, it's longer, no? So it's going to be worthwhile a lot more. And we do not charge women, not for the training that we provide, not for helping them find jobs. And because we see this as, you know, our way to make things better for everyone, and we see it as our mission, so we don't charge for that. And we provide a lot of information with our newsletters and with all the different information marketing pieces that we have, to be able to make sure that they access free training programs, scholarships, internships, and anything that would help them come back into the work market if they had been away for quite some time. And we have been very lucky to have been recognized by several institutions like the Women Economic Forum, Equal Global Partnership, where we won an award, and the W20 as a case that is helping close the gender gap in employment. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maricruz. I don't know if you can hear me now because I'm having just all technical problems today that are possible. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So thank you so much, Maricruz, and I'm aware of the wonderful work that She Works does. I think that I see a few questions in the chat, but we'll come back to it. I probably see about 4 questions, and I don't know if I've missed some earlier, but maybe we'll go straight to Elvira now and then open it up for discussion towards the end. Elvira?
Elvira, you're still on mute, though.
Yeah, I know. The sharing button wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. Hold on. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So welcome everyone. So I'm Elvira and work at IFC. For those who do not know IFC, IFC is a member of the World Bank Group, and it's the largest global development institution focused on the private sector in emerging markets. So as we all know, and what we've already been discussing, the digital economy has created new ways of doing business around the world and is growing very quickly. So while this market opportunity exists, and technology has played a very powerful role in trying to close a gender gap in the workforce, we have seen that the gender gap has not narrowed because there are consistent barriers to engaging women in the digital economy. This is also true. So we heard Maricruz talk about mainly Latin America. So this is also true for Latin America and North Africa, which has very high unemployment rates and which also has the lowest female labor force participation in the world, including for those women with a higher education degree. So this is why we as IFC have set up a project in 2020 with an online talent marketplace called ureed.com, specialized in matching offer and demand, specifically looking at ICT and linguistic services. So the ureed project was aiming at training higher educated women from Jordan and Lebanon with the needed skills to become professional online freelancers. So the end goal was for women then to feel more comfortable, confident, and to participate in more bidding processes, win more bidding processes, and then ultimately also earn more revenues. And why is this important? Although ureed.com had a lot more women registered as female freelancers, right? The ones that were actually winning the business processes were the bidding processes, were men. So men were being more aggressive in their price setting. They were more confident in reaching out to multiple different clients. And this was actually not in favor of the other, for women that were also on the platform. So we wanted to change that. And so we developed a training program called Mastering the World of Online Freelancing, which consists of these 5 modules. 3 are focusing on soft skills, and the 2 other ones are actually very technical modules that are related to linguistic services. We had a very committed partner. Ureed decided to waive the commission fee for 1 year for those women that completed the 5 training course, right? So this is actually them giving up 20% of revenues. So despite what we thought very interesting carrots to say, so I can tell you that it was quite a challenge to have active female freelancers complete the training program, and even more so to spark women's interest to become online freelancers. And why is that? Actually, if you look here at the results, we had limited outreach to start off with, right? When we looked at active freelancers on ureed.com, we only had 222 women from Jordan and Lebanon, which were our target markets for this specific project. Most of them enrolled, but only 1/3 completed 1 or more training courses. I also have to say this was over the duration of COVID, and there was the computers were being used for homeschooling and whatnot. right? So in the end, people were very happy with the training, as you can see in the percentages here, but we had a much lower uptake than expected. So in order to reach our project targets and reach a larger pool of women, we then say, okay, we need to include more female freelancers from our target countries, right? And so this appeared to be very, very difficult. So what we first tried, we did outreach with Yuri.com through social media, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and a lot of women subscribed actually, but the conversion rate was really low because then they thought, oh, this will be easy. I'm going to earn some quick money. But then they saw, oh, I need solid technical skills, And so we saw a massive dropout in the training, and actually very few people stayed on. So then we changed the approach and we reached out to women through strategic local partners in the countries that were already working on improving the technical skill sets of women. Now, this improved a little, but nevertheless, training results were still low. The conversion to actual women becoming online freelancers was also low. So we noticed there were a lot of significant barriers to actually reaching the right audience and convincing them to become an online freelancer and keeping them engaged. So we had a closer look at what are the barriers for women to actually participate in the digital economy. So some of them are summed up here. There's more, but I will share the publications in the end if you want to read more details. So the first one is legal barriers. The legal barriers are very important because in a lot of countries, freelancing, and specifically online freelancing, is a gray zone. It's not well regulated. So people feel very uncomfortable engaging in a space that is not well regulated, right? Then second, this relates more to e-commerce. There's a lot of financial and banking constraints. For example, women have very limited access to finance to purchase the goods that they want to sell or to purchase the raw materials. In some countries, women also don't have access to bank accounts, right? And then the third one is one that we particularly faced a lot in the Middle East, is the socio-cultural constraints. So freelancing was not considered as a real job. And I think, from what Nadina shared, is that it's not a primary source of revenues, but people see freelancing as an emergency solution, specifically younger women, and then say, okay, I'll do this until I have a real job. So there's really a lack of awareness on the opportunity, the market knowledge. We also notice that for some countries, English proficiency is low. So, and specifically for Lebanon, then very limited or unreliable access to the internet with very high cost of data, right? And so what is also important is the lack, I would say, training fatigue that we perceive for some groups, specifically women from disadvantaged communities. They don't want to be trained for the sake of being trained. They want to see what the end goal is. For example, a job placement or a first job that is being granted because they have finished a training program. And also what we regularly heard is that women want to be part of a community. So setting up an online community can be very beneficial. Now, if you look at it, e-commerce is already a $26 trillion industry, right? And for some regions, the growth can still, is still to be realized. For example, we have an IFC research on women and e-commerce that has found that online sales in South Asia are expected to triple by 2025. And in Africa, the market value is expected to quadruple by 2030. Now, definitely COVID spurred this growth, but it's important to note that it did not reduce the gender gap at all. Now, having said all of that, freelancing for certain markets should not be overestimated as a preferred employment option, right? So it's really important to understand your market. How is freelancing being perceived? What is the legal framework? Bear in mind that some of these obstacles that you just saw, the barriers, they're not specifically gender related, but they are aggravated, right? Due to these socio-cultural expectations. So collaborate with strategic partners, raise awareness and set up an online community approach if possible. And also a feedback that we received is that blended learning, so face-to-face and online, might work better for certain groups of women. Now, I'm going to state something that probably is quite obvious, but I'm going to state it nevertheless. Solid technical skills are an absolute must to compete online because it's very crowded and employers have a lot of choice. And Roger, I saw your question on, and I'll get to that, on employers. I actually added it in point to educate employers, so I'll get there. So what we can see here as well, that of our research, that one of the key findings was that by closing gaps between men and women vendors on platforms, we can actually create 300 billion in the hands of wallets of women entrepreneurs. This is estimated around $280 billion, imagine, in Southeast Asia, because the market is quite well developed in terms of a digital economy. And for Africa, there would nearly be $15 billion in additional market value by 2030. Okay, so and these gains, they can actually be captured by recruiting more women into e-commerce and by bringing women's sales to parity with those of men. So of course, it's important that you create a sustainable, profitable project, right? So if the platform wins, the freelancers will win as well, right? Or the gig workers will win. So the offer and an employer demand, they must go hand in hand. Now, and Roshi, you have a good point where you state, well, you know, oftentimes the quality of the work is less because, you know, some people get abused because they do not get the right payment. So it's very important that we educate employers as well online, right? So first of all, you have to look at the platform, right? So there's a fair pay. And then it's also important to raise awareness. People don't know how much it costs, for example, to have a document of 50 pages translated to, for example, Arabic. You have to give certain guidance, right? And then when people really go below a certain price range, then you already know this is not the right person you should be working for. So in our training, we tell people to be confident, women, and not to undersell themselves, because when they go to that point, right, it's very hard to then change the rate that you've been working for. So these are things that we have included. Nevertheless, it remains a very how should I say, a very sensitive topic, right? I see that there's questions appearing. I can't read them while I'm projecting my screen, but I'll get to your questions then once I finish this. So I think the others we've already touched upon. And here, I think, look,
sorry, this is Namita. Elvira, if you don't mind wrapping up, I do also want to have some time for Rani to present. So if you don't mind, in a few seconds, if you can wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, and so this is again, you know, what we've noticed, that we need to increase knowledge sharing amongst all organizations and stakeholders, which is what we're doing now. Also provide coaching and mentoring. So job placement is important, coaching and mentoring, the community, and again, looking at the employers, give them incentives to hire women, right? And including those from disadvantaged communities. We can go in this to more detail. I'm not going to share a lot of details because there's no more time, but there's actual practical ways on how platforms can help women entrepreneurs thrive in the digital economy by recruiting women, by providing them with the right training, making them aware on how they can get platform loans, having them engage in high value sectors such as electronics, and then have gender disaggregated data. This is all part of the studies that IFC has been developing. So I'm going to put in chat the 5 links to these 5 studies, so you can read this at ease. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much. Over to you, Namita.
Thank you, Elvira. This is quite interesting, and just you know, to share with everyone connected that we are doing a report which is almost final now. We expect to release it next month, exactly on the kinds of issues that Elvira touched upon. We have a whole chapter that describes some of the operational insights that Elvira touched upon in terms of how do you recruit women, what kind of training program do you deliver, how long should that training program be, what are the other barriers, and the other thing that, you know, I don't know if you all particularly picked up, but both from Elvira's presentation, but also Marie Cruz, is, you know, one of the, you know, we've been looking at this literature, and one of the things we see is that a lot of the literature has focused on the big platforms, you know, and a lot of the, and what that means is a lot of people who speak English are able to access those jobs. And you see that in the fact that countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines tend to dominate in terms of providing freelancers. The two examples that Elvira shared, for example, Elvira shared a MENA platform called YouRead, and Maricruz shared about a Latin American-based platform called SheWorks. They are also very interesting, and both of them didn't highlight this, but these two platforms are interesting in that they cater to people who speak Spanish and Arabic that usually tend to get left out of the bigger platforms. So that's an interesting angle, and our report is going to look more closely at some of those issues, not only on gender, but also exclusion when it comes to language-based exclusion. Okay, so Rani, I know that there is not a lot of time left for you, but over to you to talk a bit about the financial inclusion aspect of the platform economy.
Sure, and can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm gonna try and go very rapidly through this because I know that the slides will be shared and also drop this is part of a longer presentation. So I'm actually going to be presenting some research that CGAP on how women and men engage in the platform. What that means for their demand for financial services and how those financial services can specifically be supportive of women's engagement on platforms. Just a word about CGAP. CGAP is what we call a do tank on financial inclusion, how we seek to contribute to inclusive financial systems. In practical terms, what this means is understanding and pushing the innovation frontier.
You're cutting in and out. You may want to.
Is this on my end or is okay? Yeah.
Okay, let me know if you have audio problems again. The research I'm going to share was qualitative in nature and comprised over 150 participants of in-depth interviews or focus group discussions, about 240 structured interview survey respondents, 40% of whom were women, and 57% of those were between the ages of, while an additional 18% were, so the vast majority were on the younger end of the age spectrum.
Sorry to interrupt you. Perhaps you can speak a bit closer to the microphone, or you can select another option for the microphone from the settings.
Okay, I'm going to try this one more time.
Maybe that should be better. Yeah.
Maybe stop your video too.
Okay, I'll try that. If I can figure out how to do that. All right, maybe I'll just go on. So the participants came from the 5 verticals listed on the slide and the 5 countries shaded in green. So Nadina has already explored in depth, I think, how women engage in the platform work. I'm only going to highlight a very few things, and again, go very fast over them, that we felt particularly informed the demand they expressed for financial services. And as I said, you can read more about that. So the first of these observations was that women's, as you know, Nadina, you found in your survey, women's work on platforms. You'll see that a similar proportion as men worked what we call pay, but whereas men's curve skewed towards higher work hours, women fewer work hours. But alongside their
Oh, we have just
Rani, we've lost your voice. It seems I'm not the only one with technical problems
this time it's
today.
not only you.
Perhaps you can, from the microphone, you can select a different option, or yeah, without the headphones, maybe.
Is that better?
Let's see. It seems better, but let's see. I'll let you know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip forward to the financial findings of the presentation. But basically, what we found on the engagement in platforms in terms of work, fairly good performance in terms of increases in the amount they earned, a fairly good representation, even mixed results, I would say, compared to men on their ability to set and meet financial goals, meet the day-to-day costs, and meet the increased costs due to COVID, because this research was conducted in the teeth of COVID. So what does all that mean, basically? What we saw is that women wanted financial instruments that would support the long-term engagement that they seem to want with platforms. So as you see here, in India, 87% of women wanted, where that didn't even figure in the top 4 responses for men. Similarly, insurance was another key financial service that women indicated would support their longer-term financial security. 14, far more women than men reported accessing insurance, for example, since starting platforms. Far more women than men indicated that they would find value in life insurance that dealt with accident or sickness. And more women than men also told us that having insurance would be a factor that tipped them into platform work or out of platform work, as the case may be. So here you see that since beginning platform work, far more women also started using deposit accounts than men in our sample. And their adoption of mobile money was on par with men. And there you see the statistics on insurance that I quoted before as well. What you also see in this slide is how many fewer women started accessing loans after starting on platforms. 3 times fewer for loans related to platform work, and half as many for other types of credit and loans. And that, despite the fact that women told us that growth capital was their biggest barrier to growing their income on platforms. So on the left, what you see here is that what men told us was that there was the biggest barrier to growing their platform income was that there were no more hours left to work. And that's consonant with what we saw in terms of, how many hours. And its lack of growth capital. Now, as you see on the right, women did tell us that they do access financial support from various sources, but for all but 2, it's at a lower rate than men, the exceptions being from one spouse, and support channels on the platform, which I think raises some intriguing product delivery possibilities or support delivery possibilities. And Madhu, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that. And indeed, in terms of, accessing loans from formal financial sources, and by formal, I mean at least nominally regulated and licensed providers such as banks, cooperatives, some fintechs, what they told us is that the formal and formalization requirements are a big hurdle. There's a beautician in South Africa who told us, for example, that the business has been so informal for so long. She wants to access a loan, but she is put off by the amount of work she knows it's going to take to formalize the business and put paperwork behind everything. Similarly, Archie, who has a thriving clothes business in Kenya, told us that she doesn't have the collateral. And that really echoed what a lot of women told us in terms of. So recommendations, and again, I invite you to read this at your leisure, but I'll focus on 2 here. First, it's really leveraging that long-term potential for engagement between women and platforms through the provision of financial services that support that stickiness for which the potential is there. And that's obviously the one we talked about most needed is perhaps credit for growing your businesses, but also not to discount the value of insurance. And the value of insurance, a lot of platforms right now provide sort of bite-sized per job insurance for liability or accidents that cover both the clients and the workers. But women told us they wanted more, especially around the needs of their families. And that's the second recommendation, is to take note of those family obligations, because for example, on the insurance side, there may actually be a better business case to provide family level insurance to women, because it's women's income generation potential that is most disrupted generally when there are accidents or sicknesses or what have you, disruptions in the family. So I'm going to stop it there, both for reasons of time and audio connection, and welcome any questions that we may get to. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Rani. That was quite interesting, very, very fascinating. And I'm so sorry that we didn't give you the time that your presentation warranted, actually. But we probably, that just makes me think we'll probably have to do another run with this webinar. But maybe I'll try and get a couple of questions in the order in which they came, perhaps a few questions to you, Maricruz, if you want to respond quickly, mainly about what's the socioeconomic profile of women that are on your platform? Are they poor? Are they vulnerable? Are they middle class? And then also how you tackle currency conversions. And then do you think that your client mix has changed after COVID?
Of course. So in terms of profile, most of the women that we work with are middle class or going into middle class. So they're not from the most vulnerable groups in society, but in any case, we tend to find that are the ones that are quite left behind, because whenever they're going through hardship, there's nobody they can turn to, because all our government programs tend to be specifically for the most vulnerable groups. So they're not in that bracket, but they definitely sometimes need a hand, and there's very little help out there for them. And in terms of languages, we find that a lot of our professionals are bilingual or have a knowledge of English, but we don't put it as a requirement because most of our clients are based in the United States and in Mexico. So we actually are able to partner them with clients that are able to speak Spanish. In terms of the payments, currency conversion is not an issue because all payments are sent in US dollars, and we use international wallets like PayPal, Payoneer, so they can receive the funds in dollars and then convert them locally when they access the funds. And that's actually really a benefit for them, because the payments that they receive tend to be higher than what they would normally earn locally for the same type of job. We also don't allow bidding in our platform because we want to preserve the respect for the work that the person is giving, and we want to ensure that they're receiving a fair compensation for their work. And in terms of the client mix, after the pandemic, it changed so much. When we first started, companies were only looking at professionals from creative industries, but now we have hotel businesses, tech companies, individuals that have gone as a freelancers themselves and starting to build their company. So the client mix has changed so much after the pandemic. So virtually anybody's hiring professionals online. Yeah, and then there was a question regarding tax support and legal. We always recommend them to follow their local regulations. So professionals in the online world tend to be considered independent professionals. So as long as you're registered as an independent professional and you're paying your own taxes as an independent professional, that should be fine. Most of our countries also offer you insurance together when you pay your taxes. So that's why we feel it's really important that they pay attention to that. And it tends to be a small contribution as well. So it's not that it's going to put them way behind if they register with their local tax organization, right, within their country.
Thank you, Maricruz. I'm so sorry that I'm not able to get to the other questions. I think we just have to do another. This was jinxed. I mean, this webinar had a lot of issues, mainly for me, actually, in terms of technology. But hopefully we'll do another one. And I think what we'll do immediately, at least, is to share the slides that the panelists shared in the webinar with you all, so at least you're able to see the content of what was presented. But a big thank you to all the 4 panelists. Thank you so much for sharing. We hope to have a whole series on the gig economy, a whole series of webinars and discussions. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, and apologies again for my bad technical connection today. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Maricruz. Thank you, Elvira. Thank you, Rani. Thank you, Nadina.